Think of John Wick with the side of Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad, and you get this film. You know what? That actually sounds amazing. What's going on, you guys? James here with another Real Review, and today we're talking about the latest action shoot-'em-up film, Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk, Connie, Nielsen, and Christopher Lloyd alongside RZA. It's directed by Ilya Naishuller, who actually directed Hardcore Henry. You guys remember that first-person experience. I wasn't too keen on it, but the action sequences were really awesome, and here, well, let me tell you, there are some brutal kills. And of course, a huge thank you to Universal Pictures for providing me with the screener link for review. Now, I know I joked about this being like John Wick, but guys, the screenwriter for this film, Derek Kolstad, wrote the screenplay for all three John Wick movies. So yeah, there are some similarities. We'll talk about what worked and honestly what didn't work too well in this film. But before we get started, if it's your first time here at the channel, guys, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies really like this all the time. So if you don't want to miss out on my reviews, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell so you'll be the first one in the comments. And speaking of comments, guys, when you watch this movie, which is expected to hit theaters this weekend, let me know what you think about it, because I'm curious to see if it's just a movie where maybe I needed to turn my brain off a little bit more, or maybe I am actually on the money with some of my critique. Alrighty, y'all. Well, you know what? Enough of that. Let's get into what this movie's about. Hutch Mansell is a man living a tedious, boring life, but there's more than meets the eye with this guy, and after he intervenes to help a woman after she was harassed by a group of men on a bus, he becomes the target of a Russian mobster and vengeful drug lord. Now he must fight to save his family and himself. After I heard about this film starring Bob Odenkirk, I was already in, but then I saw the trailer and I thought, oh my gosh, give me this movie right now. So I'm really glad that the film actually panned out the way I thought it would. And that is with Bob Odenkirk being completely awesome. I've always loved his style of acting, especially in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, but here in Nobody, he fits in well with this shoot-'em-up genre. I was hesitant at first, guys, because his gravelly voice, that very low bravado type of voice he tries to deliver in the beginning of the movie, didn't really work too well for me, but eventually it grew on me, and I think as the film went on, I just got used to it. I ended up loving his swagger and how he was always the most confident person in the room. Now, the film does spend a lot of time allowing us to unravel the mystery of who Hutch Mansell really is. He's not just some guy who goes and works this construction job or whatever it might be. He has a past that is coming back to haunt him little by little. And while the script does well enough to tell us why he earned this fearful reputation among mobsters and government officials, I wish we would have got some flashback scenes of a young Hutch Mansell alongside his dad and his brother, because that, I think, would have really been the cherry on top. But again, that's no fault of the movie. I think they still did a good enough job getting us up to speed and then showing us the aftermath, because boy, let me tell y'all, there were some crazy moments in this movie. And while it didn't happen very often, Bob Odenkirk is so good at delivering quippy lines that either make his foes mad, or if you're in his corner, make those rooting for him smile and cheer. I liked his approach to this role, and I want to see him in more action shoot-'em-ups, because he did command the screen for the most part, especially in the second half of the movie. Now again, guys, we gotta talk about the similarities to John Wick, because it's not just the screenwriter, it's a lot of the story beats as well that line up with Keanu Reeves and what he did with John Wick. John Wick has a dog, Hutch Mansell has a cat. John Wick has an awesome car. Well, Hutch Mansell also has an awesome car. And both have this fascination with wanting to take down evil men after doing so much wrong in their past. And if you're a fan of the John Wick movies, I do think you're going to find a lot of things to love about the action in this film as well. And I love the stylized direction that took place in the middle of these big gunfights. The action scenes were grandiose and sometimes very personal. There's a huge warehouse moment at the end that made me ooh and ah plenty of times, but then there are smaller moments like a sequence on a city bus where Bob Odenkirk is just kicking all of the butt. I mean, seriously, I was surprised at how he was doing all of this solo. These moments work very well, and honestly, they're worth the price of admission alone. I was hoping they wouldn't hold back, and they didn't. There's also a good amount of clever filmmaking here by director Ilya Naishuller, which gives this film its own identity. I loved how the camera tracked the action and how several scenes are framed. I mean, this director just knows how to keep lots of these awe-inspiring moments in view, and nothing is too quick where you don't know what's happening, and that's a huge plus, because there are a lot of action movies that might have cool set pieces, but if you can't follow and track the action, man, I'm just zoning out. There's also a couple of really surprising supporting performances here that made me smile so wide. We gotta start with Christopher Lloyd, alright? He ain't no scientist here, but he is definitely majoring in the science of kicking a ton of butt. I'm not going to say the other word, guys, but trust me when I tell you, Christopher Lloyd, I kind of want to see more of him in these action movies because he killed it here. He plays Hutch's father, David Mansell, and there's one moment with him in the retirement home that just left me shocked in the best way. I honestly never thought I'd say this, guys, but I want more of Christopher Lloyd in shoot-'em-up films. It's amazing. And I also loved RZA's performance here too as Hutch's brother, Harry Mansell. They communicate primarily through a radio, but once he hops up on the scene, guys, he has his own standout moments too. Both of these characters complement Bob Odenkirk very well, and I actually wish the story went in that direction a little bit more. But guys, let's get into the negatives because even though this film has a lot to rave about, not all of it is executed very well. There's a very distinct style for shooting most of these action scenes and a heavy dependence on using the soundtrack. Now that was a blessing and a curse because even though the music sometimes complemented what we saw on screen, it didn't always land for me as much as I think it wanted to. I wish we could have heard more of the natural sounds, the punches landing, the bullets falling to the ground. That would have been really nice, but honestly, the soundtrack is overbearing way too often. It honestly became very distracting and I grew tired of the soundtrack just blaring in the middle of scenes I was logged in on. This is really apparent at the end, guys, and definitely noticeable during that big action sequence. I was compelled by all of the moments. There were some really surprising kills towards the end, but I can't tell you guys that I loved all of it all the way through because the music again comes up out of nowhere and I caught myself saying, alrighty, again, we're hearing this song instead of hearing them actually fighting. It's very annoying. As you can tell, that is probably the biggest drawback that I have for the film outside of this next negative, and that's the supporting cast and the story. They're pretty weak, and that's due to a big issue I have with the plot itself. I was actually pretty surprised because the John Wick movies have consequence for their lead character, but I don't feel like after we unravel that mystery of Hutch Mansell, that this character was facing any dire consequences. There was nothing in the world that can stop him, and I mean nothing. I can excuse the plot armor for our lead characters in these shoot-'em-ups sometimes, but the reason why John Wick works so well is because we see our hero lose something, anything to make him feel more human. Here in Nobody, our lead character really doesn't have to go through that, and that really lowers the stakes for me. And then there's the supporting cast, where we find actress and legend Connie Nielsen as Hutch's wife, Becca. I'm not sure if the script just forgot how to use this actress, or maybe use this role at all, but it felt like her performance was trying to get the best out of the script, but the script was just making her feel very pedestrian. It's a shame because I'm a huge fan of hers, and to see her in this passerby role really makes me believe that they could have cast anyone else here and it wouldn't matter. And then when it comes to this Russian mobster Ilya, the actor is not bad per se, but I don't necessarily believe that there was enough love and attention given there for me to care about these characters. They were just expendable, and at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily make for a movie that has lasting power all the way through. So the plot could have been much better. The supporting characters outside of Christopher Lloyd and RZA didn't have too much impact, and I never felt that chemistry there with any of our actors, well, outside of Christopher Lloyd and RZA, and that stinks. But overall, you guys, Nobody really is like John Wick Light. It's a film where you turn your brain off, you go in expecting a shoot 'em up, you get that and so much more sometimes, but unfortunately you don't get that layered story. This is an area where I feel like Nobody could have distinguished itself because yes, we have a cool style sometimes, and I do like how they used music every now and then, even though that was clearly the biggest drawback for me, but it's the story that isn't really compelling, and honestly this mystery that they were unraveling, once we get through it and we understand who Hutch Mansell is, it doesn't really hit in the way I think it wanted to. But I can't lie to you, I did like Bob Odenkirk here. This is a film that if you see it on the big screen, it might even play better than an at-home viewing. And guys, at the end of the day, I really want to see Christopher Lloyd in his own solo action movie because man, he just absolutely crushes it here. He was the standout for me. I love this performance. And overall, I gotta say, man, Nobody, it's like a 3-star out of 5. You know, it's not terrible. That's not a bad score, I think. I hope none of you guys get too mad. But honestly, it's this movie that doesn't have a lot of staying power, but it is a pleasant action movie that kind of breaks up the more serious films that we've been getting this month and last. So guys, there you have it. That's my real review of Nobody, a film again that is expected to hit theaters March 26th, so you don't want to miss it. But when you do watch it, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think of the film. Go ahead and hit the big red button below if you haven't already subscribed, and tap on that bell. And guys, if you love Bob Odenkirk like me, smash that like button. Alrighty guys, well I got a busy week ahead. I got my first impressions review of episodes 1 through 3 of Invincible on Prime Video this weekend. Got to work on some Falcon and the Winter Soldier stuff, and so much more. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.